Hey folks, welcome back. In this video, we'll take a look at how you can assemble a junkyard using simple volumetric shapes, like the example that you see here. So let's get started. Let's consider for a moment our beloved grid. Now, I've talked about this grid many times before in previous videos, so if you haven't watched those, definitely check it out. But the basic idea is you're creating a surface. And we're finding the midpoints between the top edge, which is the center of the top segment, and the center of the bottom segment. And we're going to continue to subdivide these to where we're creating a one-point perspective grid. Now, grids don't always have to be trapezoidal. You can make grids rounded. So I'll pick a different color here. We can just carve out the bottom and kind of make a circular shape for our junkyard mound. And in fact, usually when things are in a pile, they kind of stack up much like you would see a cone. So that's something to keep in mind here. We're drawing our grid. We're carving out a piece of the grid that is going to be used for our pile of stuff. With that said, let's consider how we can place objects on this to make it look believable. So when you're dealing with this idea of placing objects, you need to think about your basic volumetric shapes. So you've got your spheres, your cylinders, you've got your cubes, you've got your cones. And it's really, really important that you're able to draw these shapes from any angle whatsoever. It's really the key to getting better at drawing. You have to practice these specific shapes. With that understanding, let's go ahead and put stuff into this cone. So how are we going to do that? Well, we have our underlying grid. So we can start off, for example, by putting some kind of a box. As our object. And then we can start to put other objects as well. So I'm going to consider the idea of visual hierarchy. I want to have something that's relatively large in this particular pile, like this box, and I can start to stack other objects up. So let's just focus on the base. Maybe we'll have some kind of a pipe. Maybe we'll have, let's see, some kind of a rectangular shape. Maybe like a chair. And we're going to consider overlap. We might have a cylindrical shape here for maybe a tire. And when we place these objects in, we want to be cognizant of the fact that they're not going to pile up nice and neatly. There's going to be some chaos or disarray. So we can put things in front of other elements. So for example, this is a piece of board that is sitting in front of this box. And from there, what you can do as you start to stack things up, consider the idea of just creating a series of lines. And you can start filling in some volumetric shapes that are popping out. So we might have a box like this. Have something that's somewhat circular. And we're just going to use these lines as a way of showing some clutter or debris. And what I find to be really helpful is you juxtapose or you switch between these hard shapes and some round shapes. And the end result is you're getting something that looks like it's being formed into a pile. So you could have pieces that are jutting out, and you can start to see that this is starting to come together. So now that I've got the basic structure of this in place, I can start to segment off areas and create some black fills. So I'll just go ahead and pick some areas that I'm going to corner off as being areas that are going to have black. just using these random shapes, but I've got some volumetric shapes that are already in place. So as I'm working through this, I'm not really focused so much on detail as I am just structure. And it's a pile of junk, so you really can't mess this up. But starting with that grid, I think, is the most beneficial, and also making sure that you place objects at the base of the grid in a very convincing way. So I'll just go ahead and add some more black fills. And the eye does a great job of filling in those areas that are empty. You can also combine your cross-hatching. You can add some specks to kind of show wear and tear. You can add some dings. And this is where you can start adding some details. Maybe this is like some kind of a wire that's sticking out. But I don't start with details. I start with the underlying shapes. And from there, I can always add my details. So here's a corrugated pipe. Here's a set of tires. So the basic idea when you're creating a pile of junk is you want to have overlapping volumetric shapes. You want to have visual hierarchy, which is large, medium, and small shapes. And then with that, you want to also have offset, which is basically nothing is piled up nice and neat. Things are staggered. Instead of like if you were to pile objects one on top of the other, it has a lot of order. But if you were to go ahead and offset that, now it's looking a little bit more chaotic. And so that's the tip that I'm going to leave you with. So that's how you can create a pile of junk. And you can always add some other elements like debris. You can put some little grass, weeds, that type of stuff to go ahead and make everything feel a little bit more natural. You can even add some shadows for some of your heavier objects and really make it look convincing. So this is just like the underdrawing. I would then go back and clean this up. The big important thing is start with that grid, create a conical shape, put your main objects on the grid and start building up. You don't have to add every single element of color. You can, you don't have to flesh out every single object here. You just have to provide a hint of what those objects are. And some of those details are going to be more visible to the viewer than others, and that just makes it more interesting. So I hope you found this tutorial to be helpful. If you did, please consider subscribing to the channel and giving this video a like so that other folks can find it. Again, my name is Krishna. Thanks so much for watching the videos. And we're close to getting 1,000 subscribers. So tell a friend or 10 so that they can also benefit from this information as well. Thanks so much for watching. See you in the next video.